assuming most of you have seen the previous video on this, if not, watch the last couple minutes of it, it's totally worth it, honestly, and I never say that. You know that we've maxed out the fuel system and the turbo on this car, but how much power is that? It's finally time to go to the dyno and figure that out. Now, we're not gonna be using the load dyno. There's no like, oh, why is Rob not doing that? Totally worth it. It's quick, dirty, simple. There are so many small things that we have changed, and they all make this car that much better. It all transfers over to the 4-rotor, which I just got back from Connecticut hours ago. This dyno session is gonna be really fun. She is just running smooth. She hasn't even warmed up yet fully, and everything's just smooth. This is an exciting moment for us. Huge thanks to DK for making this happen. Haltech is insane. I was able to switch the engine setup, so rotor 1 and rotor 2 are technically bank 1 and bank 2. And when that happens, you can actually have your O2 control, so my insurance policy, adjust per rotor. So I've gotten the map between the two pretty solid. It was just saying, hey, add the two up, the average of both, and then adjust the engine overall from there. I have my logs, and it shows that on boost, that maybe rotor 1 gets like 1% more, 2% more. That's really nominal. This will adjust it from there even more. So we're gonna go ahead and do a 15 PSI pull, make sure that nothing breaks up, then check plugs. We'll see what happens on our very first pull. I had pulled out of that because it started getting so rich, you could see it starting to buck. DK just told me we made 472 on our very first pull at 15 PSI. It was just going super rich for what I was trying to do, and so we didn't even get to 9,000 RPM. We didn't get past really 67,000. That is absolutely incredible. What a beautiful first pull. Look at that stability. We just hit 530 horsepower and 430 foot-pounds of torque at just 15 PSI. So there's tons to adjust, but we added 15% fuel. Even though the AFRs and everything were telling us one thing, the plugs were telling us that other story. And so she didn't break up that run, and so I learned a lot about this engine. I got a lot lucky with the 3-rotor because it's semi-P, it's the same porting on everything, but I'm gonna pull the plugs just one more time just to see what we're seeing, but she didn't break up at all. The goal right now is we're gonna go to 20 PSI. What you're gonna see in this graph that's gonna be weird for me and for you is that it doesn't just make that nice, beautiful, simple curve. I'm gonna be working on all that later tonight. The air fuel targets are totally different for this car than any other car I've ever had, so I have to kind of like extrapolate what the car likes and what's safe. We'll see what 20 PSI gives us the first time. How rich that was. The areas where it's super rich are the areas where it died on power in that run. This is getting much cleaner. We're at 585 horsepower, still extremely rich run for even our new numbers. You're starting to see the familiar shapes. You know what my favorite thing about Simply Safe is that when Joel leaves the door unlocked on the front door, Simply Safe lets me know because it beep, 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 beep. It's so annoying. And thanks to Simply Safe, I can give him a lot of crap about it. Far beyond that, Simply Safe is the thing that keeps me simply safe. It's extremely easy to set up, and one of the things that I haven't talked about in the previous months that I think really does matter to me is it's aesthetically pleasing. Everything, like the front door lock, if you compare it to other brands, it looks nice. The side that goes inside the house Obviously, you don't want people just being able to open it up from the outside. That's aesthetic. The keypad is aesthetic. Even the base station itself is just something that would look good on your counter. It was something my girlfriend approved when I brought the setup home to be able to watch the cats while we were out traveling. And so everything just looks nice. And of course, that's something I don't talk about because what they do is way more important. Whether it's the keypad, the smoke alarm, the water level sensor, the temperature sensor, the glass break sensor, the motion sensor, all those different things just look nice, but they're so easy to set up. There's no long-term contracts. It's less than $1 a day for all of that monitoring. And if something occurs, the people on the other end of the phone, when they call to make sure everything's good, have always been wonderful. They've always been great people. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for interactive monitoring and get your first month free. Go to simplisafe.com/RobDahm to learn more. I've been so fortunate with all the people helping me. This is simply changing it from my timing map, 22 degrees across the board from, well, you can actually see this is all 22 degrees instead of what I was doing. It is nice that it's a smoother power band, but it's more, or more. We just made 511 at 15 pounds of boost, but it's more so the fact that it's smooth. I'm trying to smooth it out, not to get this thing to detonate or misfire or whatever the hell it's doing. This is certainly going to make me a better tuner. As you guys have seen in my journey, this area gets crowded and then tons of wires and removed, tons of wires and removed. That's just the nature of me testing random theories. We've tested so many things up to this moment. We've had 3 wideband sensors on the car. We've burned up a couple sensors. We've learned so much. And I will tell you this, we are simplifying it, but keeping as much of the good data instead of overwhelming data all at once. Those are being retired because I think I broke one of them. We are gonna do something that simplifies that setup completely. I am so in love with everything Haltech does. This little thing right here, 2 sensors in 1 unit, and this part plugs into the 2 sensors, and then this is a CAN bus. Instead of taking up even more of my inputs, I can actually free up some inputs and have this just be 2 O2 sensors. So this uses the NTK, which is like NGK's company, sensors. And these sensors are actually generally considered to be better for like alcohols or really rich fuels. I use it on the 4-rotor, it works really well. Haltech offers this version for the NTK, and then the same thing for the Bosch 4.9. Now we're gonna have consistent data because we had 2 different controllers on the 2 different things, and I think that was messing me up. And on top of that, Innovate makes these that actually have heat sinks, kind of cool it. You point this towards the exhaust flow, and then it goes up and in, and then flows back out the top. And I indexed them, they fit on there perfectly. The reason why that bothers me is on our 2 O2 sensors that we've been using, one of the things was smaller and it had more meat inside of the housing, so it was actually able to change the flow. So I think we were reading 2 different flows, and the other thing that gives me that impression is that rotor 1 was much more orange than rotor 2. So my readings weren't accurate. We're gonna have a brand new setup, compare those 2, and then we have the third one right there. I have 3 O2 sensors on this car. The main tuning will be done off of that. So that way it's not so sporadic. One of the other problems was the car was dumping tons of small amounts of fuel and it was reverberating, it was making it worse. So we wanna have the sum, we correct the car after the runs by hand. What's the difference between the O2 sensor reading from these before the turbo, and let's compare that directly to the one after. A couple seconds of setup, I was able to get this cable, which comes with the kit. Haltech just did an update on the Elites that allows you to use both the internal CAN and this CAN. There's a spare for it, but then I can also have this where I can just plug and play. So I've got both, so I don't have to get hardcore with my wiring. On this end, sensor 1 is on this side. Definitely want to put it on rotor 1, otherwise it gets really confusing quickly. This thing also has built-in daisy chaining and all this other sort of craziness that even I don't need to use, but I will use it. 2 of these on the 4-rotor, and you'll plug this one into the computer, next one into the other one. We're gonna go ahead and fire it up once and tell the computer, I have to plug the sensors in, but tell the computer that, hey, there's the CAN module. See if we see it. By not having the sensors plugged in and giving it power, it says, hey, next time calibrate the sensors. It says connected, that's really good. And then we're gonna go ahead and look at our sensors, and we're gonna add 3 total. So bank 1, it's on the CAN controller. Bank 2, it still allows us to do that CAN controller. So then we'll go to wiring, assign this. Oh, look at that, it's already right there. So 1 is 1, 2 is 2. There we go. So they're now calibrated. That's the opposite of what I was expecting. We are back and determined. We got all those little changes made. So we're gonna do another 15 PSI pull. A, hopefully it doesn't break up. B, we'll see if we make more power, more response, all this sort of stuff too. We are conquering this car finally. I did a couple harder pulls on it that you'll hear a little poof. That is rich on any other car, but on this car, that is lean. The car wants to feel so rich that the two NTK sensors in the runners air out. They go so rich you can't read them, even from those. It is what it is. I'm glad I have all three because it's answered so many questions I had. What we're gonna do now is look at the plugs, see if we need to go a little bit more fuel or whatever the case is, but that's what, 530, very consistent with minor details, but very consistent pull all the way across. With that 15 PSI, really solid like that, we're gonna go ahead and step it up to 20 and see what happens. There is our first 612 horsepower, and that's at 20 PSI, and we've maxed the fuel system out, so I'm not going as high anymore because I still want to tune that response and have that nice down low area too. Very, very impressed with this turbo. We're gonna go ahead and see just a little bit further. We're running out of fuel. The fuel injectors are maxed out, so we'll see what the limit of that is. I think they actually might max out before the turbo does, but they're right next to each other. We've effectively maxed out the fuel system so much that it's way beyond 100%. What we're gonna do now is focus on the low end response. Just see how much this turbo can spool on the street, blow the tires off even. It's just nice because I can see where this turbo on this car is very strong and I wanna exploit that more. So we're gonna go up to 24 PSI. Oh my God, look at the curve. Look at that. We hit boost cut on that. And I also let off at the same time. I just saw it just shoot out of control. That was insane. We hit 33 PSI.
Jeez.
I let off. I shit my pants. My God, that thing would blow the tires off right there. That's over 550. Yeah.
You said 560.
560 foot-pounds of torque at 4,200 RPM. That's insane. And I strongly suspect that this turbo is going to choke out probably at 6,500 RPM. Kind of need to know what it'll do. With the insane amount of torque that we're gonna get this car, I am almost concerned that it feels like a V8 in it. It's insane. We are hitting the limits of the turbo. We're hitting the limits of the fuel system. And we have a G40 1150 on the way to compare to completely. It's gonna be a top end monster and bottom end monster compared to this. We'll get some back-to-backs on that. This has been one of the most educational dyno experiences over the last 4 different sessions, 2 with Busy and 2 here. This was just a lot easier just to test things quickly, and we needed that because insane the difference in air fuel ratios and all that. The good news is that once we get the G40 1150 in, we'll have that nice longevity all the way up and over. And of course, that's where you make horsepower. We have the torque. We just need to sustain the torque up to the high end to make that horsepower. So it's insane. Over 550 foot-pounds of torque at whatever, 4,200 RPM. That's nuts. The G35 1050 is a great, almost like an EFR level. Like those are almost in the exact same area where it's got that nice spool street area. There you go. We pushed this car finally to its limits. We can drive the shit out of it now. Tune the boost for traction on the street, launch control, all that. But we're gonna have all that fun.